Is that better? You know what I did? Uh, I was on mute. That may have made it difficult. So I'll start over. I'll start over. Welcome to the Thursday stream. I'll learn how to use my streaming software. I'll get better at it. So again, the goal is to continue down our path of fear, scary things that are out there that we've been going through the month of October. So any questions you may have that are generating fear or concern or anything that's making your agile life or even just your software engineering life, your just your work life. Because as we talked about at the end of the last stream, Kazi is Swahili for work. And our whole goal is to just help your work life be better. One of our taglines is make tomorrow better than today. So that's what this stream is about. If you're new, thanks for coming. I think you'll find that the chat is fantastic. That's the thing that's made me the happiest. In fact, I talked about that in our last podcast, which will be coming out next week. So 38 followers. Yeah, there's 38 followers total if you look up above. So my little goal bar wasn't updated, so I caught it up with that. So we're getting close. No, I didn't buy those. If I knew how, I would. I'm just kidding. But seriously though, getting to 50 followers opens a whole new set of functionality for us to use in Twitch. So if you are new, please hit that follow button. The heart button at the top depends on what version of Twitch you are using. That is my feedback point as to how effective we are at delivering content to you, but also you do qualify for extra functionality once we get to 50 followers. So with your help, we're going to make it there. But most importantly, this is about you. This is about you guys coming and getting help with the problems or questions that you may have. Some folks have reached out to me about how to submit questions ahead of time. I also, at the end of last stream, talked about trying to find a way for you guys to ask questions more easily instead of in chat. And guess what? There's functionality for it, but I can't use it until we get to 50 followers. There's a set of extensions that are available, but they aren't available to you until you've reached a certain status. So hopefully once we get there, we can turn that on. But until then, chat's going to be the way for us to ask questions. That's the way we started. That's the way we'll roll until we figure out how to make that work a little bit better. So thank you for following. That's exciting. That's cool. Good to have you. So once again, questions in the chat if you have them. Otherwise, I'm going to go down the scary path. Bob Galen and I do a podcast up in the upper left-hand corner. You'll see the Metacast. That's us. I'll get to your question in just a second, Josh. And we started talking about leaders and fear for leaders and the fact that oftentimes a transformation to Agile not only presents challenges for the teams themselves, and what you'll find is that that's where so much of the information and blog articles and books are about the team and members of the team. But how do managers and directors and VPs, how do they handle that change? How do they handle letting go? So we spent probably 40 minutes discussing that yesterday morning. That should go live here in the early next week. That's the plan. Actually, our Patreon supporters get access to that. I think they already have access to that. I published that to them yesterday. So that's up and live for them. Everyone else will get it, I think, Tuesday morning around 7 o'clock Eastern. So, all right. So let's get to Josh's question first of the day. So I agree with you 100%, Josh. I am not a fan of pre-planning who does what. Now, you can't be completely blind, and there are going to be times where it's most effective for somebody to take a story and run with it. But to your point, you have to get people to learn. Also, when you start pre-assigning tasks and you're going to take that one and you're going to take that one, you're going to take that one, people lose that team mentality and they start to think and act like, well, I got my story done. What are you guys doing? Why are you guys screwing around? So what I find best is that those are the goals that we as a team agreed to do. And it's up to us to find the most effective way to get them all from the to do column to the done column. And over time, you'll find that working together, pairing, getting people to level up skills by working on things that maybe aren't in their historic wheelhouse, that enables the team to run faster. So I don't ever like to pre-plan stories and assign them to people just because it creates bad habits. But it's tough because people, again, are trying to do it for the right reason. They're trying to find the optimal way to do things and trying to plan things out of, okay, Josh, you take that one. Jamie, you take that one. Josh, you take this one, and we'll knock it out. That's essentially waterfall planning at that point. It's only a 2-week sprint, but still, stuff's going to go wrong. Things aren't going to go as well as you like. There's going to be bugs or stories or stuff that's swinging out of left field that you have to react to. So keeping it as responsive as possible is the right way to go. So I think you're right on there, Josh. So Jamie, I guess the question is, for the pairs, mods, and swarms, what do you think is going to scare them? I would be hopeful that they would relish the opportunity to work together. Maybe not. And then if not, then that's the problem. So I just would want to know more from you, Jamie, what you're worried they're going to be worried about. Because I've seen people really attack that aggressively and get excited. It could be fear of transparency, a lot of the things we've talked about of, oh no, I've got to show people how I code, and am I as good as those folks over there? Or yeah, I know Jamie's really good, so is he going to just kind of mock me for not being as fast as him, or what's going on? So there's a couple things I've seen, but I think if you've done a good job of coaching and building that culture, and if you're worried about those things, Jamie, then maybe one of the things you should do is hit pause on that and work with your peers to fix some of those things that you're worried about before you turn those things on. So before you turn on pairing and swarming and mobs, maybe there's a cultural issue that you need to sort out that will make that as effective as possible. Or you could do a 180 on that and use that as an indicator and say, hey guys, listen, if we can't do this, we clearly have a cultural problem that we need to sort out. So you can do it one of two ways. You can hold off on it, fix the cultural issues that would create some fear, or use it to shine a spotlight on the fact that we have some communication issues. We have some challenges here that we need to work through. So it depends on your situation you've got going on there, Jamie, but those are things I look at. I am a guy, I just like to put stuff out there, but admittedly sometimes that screws things up and I end up putting my foot directly in my mouth. I've done that a lot, unfortunately. So let me know what you think. So I'm a fan of meeting invites. Stand up, it's pretty nice and simple, right? You set it up once, recurring for every day at the same time. It's a good, healthy reminder for folks that are there. Over time, you'll have done it a million times, and that calendar invite starts to lose value just because you guys have built up habits and you've done it every day for the last year and a half. But it's good to have all of those ceremonies up and on the calendar so people get the reminders. They don't get in too deep with a piece of code and lose focus and realize, oh, I'm supposed to be at the stand-up. So I'm a fan of meeting invites. I've got no issue with that. In fact, I like all of the indicators for the team that this is important. It has the same amount of weight as any other meeting. And if you don't treat it as such, then people might not treat it as such either. So be careful with that. Agree completely with you, Josh. You have that there, and no meetings accidentally overlap. And really that happens from people outside, people that aren't in your team, people that aren't going to those stand-ups. if you don't have that blocked off, people will stomp all over it. And then stuff will happen and people won't show up to your stand-ups because they've been invited to another meeting, and then the wheels start to fall off and no one's happy. So yeah, put those calendars out there. Use it. Use all those tools. Help it make your life easier. It's a good, healthy reminder every day that we've got that. Like I said, you'll get to a point where after a certain number of months, years, sprints, everybody just naturally knows it. And even the rest of the organization will know, okay, so I know I can't schedule a meeting with anybody on the software team between 9:30 and 9:45 or whatever is your time of stand up. Yeah, don't be afraid. Send those meetings out there. Get them ready to go. Okay. So welcome, by the way. Is this your first stream? I'm not even going to try and pronounce your name because I'm going to get it wrong. Actually, I'll try it, and then you can laugh at me. And then Jamie can laugh at me, and then his daughter can laugh at me because I'm sure I'll say it wrong, and then my accent will have it wrong. So I'll get it really wrong. So, here we go. Are you ready? Rachna. Did I get it right? I think it's just that simple. Hopefully I nailed it. And didn't get it too wrong, because I am bad at names. Not only am I bad at names, I'm bad at remembering names. I'm bad at pronouncing names. Yeah. I got it right. All right. I'm going to tell my kids I got it right. They'll be so proud. Well, welcome, Rachna. It's good to have you. If you do have any questions, please don't be afraid to ask. I am here. As you see, the chat is here. They are always ready to help. They've been fantastic. I'm working on tools to reward people for being so helpful in chat. That's one of those things I'm trying to figure out. I spent some time earlier this morning trying to get a few things lined up, but as I learned, there is certain functionality that's disabled until you reach what they call, I think it's partner status or affiliate status or something like that. That happens at 50 followers. There's a few other gates, like you have to average a certain number of viewers per stream. We're doing great with that, so we're in good shape. So we just got to get to 50 followers, then we can get some more functionality in there that would allow people to say thanks. I mean, you still use chat and all that stuff, but there's some pretty cool rewards and games and out there that we can put in place that I think would be fun for everyone. So if you don't know, Red Hat, who is here in Raleigh, is holding their Red Hat Agile Day today, and they do have a live stream for folks that may want to check it out later. I'm not exactly sure how long it's going to go on. Let me find this for you. Yeah, there we go. Let me get these in chat for you. So they use BlueJeans. I've spoken there a couple times, and they have 2 tracks going on, which is kind of cool. It's a free event that they share. They welcome as many people as they can, and they have some pretty good speakers out there. So you can use those links to go and watch some of their talks. I know they always have pretty good folks they're talking. So if you have a little time this afternoon, I would check it out. They are good people. I know a couple of the Agile coaches there. I've hired an Agile coach away from them. Sorry, guys. He was really good. It's just a good free event they have every year. So if you get a chance, check it out. Actually, let me give you the link to the agenda as well. So that way, if you want to sign up for information for next year, you can keep an eye on that. Yeah, so check that out. That's a good event that's going on right in our backyard here. Okay, Rachna. So you've got a few sprints which are just defects. You don't get an MVP. I actually would argue that if you're fixing broken functionality, that is part of an MVP. Part of that MVP should have fully functional pieces without bugs. So is it as exciting or as fun as building new features and adding to that viability of the product? No. But I would argue it's not truly viable if you have a certain number of sprints where it's all bugs. One of the things I've found is that when you get to a healthy state, your sprints are broken down into two chunks. 70% of your work is going to be building new features, enhancing existing features, and the other 30% of your work is going to be centered on improving things. So it might be technical debt, architectural type things. Maybe there's version upgrades for tools or whatever you need to do, and bugs. So that's, I've found when we've gotten teams and products into a healthy state, that's the average that we've always shaken out to. So I say average because don't try and hold that to every sprint. Don't try and expect that every sprint is exactly 70% features and 30% bugs and tech debt. But when you zoom out and you average it out across a year, it should look about like that. There are going to be times like this where you have sprints that are mostly all bugs, but there will probably also be times where you have sprints that are mostly features. So again, don't get too focused on just one sprint and the percentages that are there. Keep a running total, and I always keep a spreadsheet of that, and I just try and keep an eye on, are we trending in a good direction or a bad direction? Are we spending more than 30% on things? That's an indicator that, hey, maybe we've got some quality issues and we need to know that, and that we're trying to do the right thing. Or if you're trending down and spending less and less time on that technical debt piece, if you're not getting 30%, if you're getting, say, 10%, it's time to start asking some questions of, are there things around the corner that are going to come and bite us? Are there scary things lurking out there that we're not paying attention to? They're going to jump up out of the dark and put us in a bad place. Maybe not. Maybe you're doing fantastic and everything's just wonderful. But my guess is that if you're trending down, you aren't doing a good enough job spending time and energy on that technical debt, which eventually piles up and buries you. Yep, I agree with you. Sounds like you are right on. Yeah, and again, that 70/30, don't take it as a concrete number that can't ever change. That's what I found has worked best for the teams that I've been on. So find your right ratio, 70/30. Maybe it's 60/40. It's going to depend on the type of product you have. How new is it? Is it a legacy product? And there's a lot of technical debt that you have to spend time paying down. So not everybody's going to be the same, but figure out that number that's right and healthy for you, and then just keep track of it and use it again as an indicator to how effective you guys are at doing the things you need to do versus the things you want to do. You know, Justin, I've seen product owners, and actually not product owners. I've seen product managers and executives and folks like that try and slide stuff in as a bug, when in reality it's working as it was intended to. So maybe there's some sale or something they're trying to close, and they know the process of getting a feature through and having all that be done right slows them down. So people try and squeeze it through as a bug. So definitely keep an eye on that. Oh, it is a dirty trick, and it's always a fun debate, right? Because they'll find some way to come up and say, well, actually, you know, it was meant to work like this, but on and on and on. And then you end up spending so much time and energy around that. But I have seen that happen quite a lot. I've had to have those fun discussions and get people to say, listen, it's just a bug. Or actually, that's not a bug. It's a feature. So we're going to put it through the process. We're going to understand where it fits in the priorities. Should we really do it? Because we always have these SLAs around bugs and priority. If it's a P1 or P2 or P3 or however you label your bugs, we have expected response times and expected fix times. So people try and jam things into that mode because they know that's work that can and will disrupt a sprint. So rather than going through the process, they try and turn things into bugs so they can jam it through the process and get it shipped sooner or faster than actually is appropriate. Because stories should go through a relatively rigorous amount of work to determine, should we do this work? If we decide we should do the work, where does it fit in the priorities? Oh, Josh, you are a fan of the long questions. I like it though. Keep them coming. All right, I'm going to take a second to read this here. Oh, you're no novice, man. You've had some good answers to questions here. So sizing is one of those things that's always tricky and uncomfortable for teams to work through. What I like to do is I like to have what we call a reference story. And I like to have a couple of reference stories. I don't like to have too many reference stories. So I like to have, because we use the Fibonacci as well. So what I like to do is I like to have a 3-point story defined and then an 8-point story defined. And then those are the reference points. You say, okay, is it about the same size as the 3-point story? Yes or no? No, it's not. Okay. So is it bigger or smaller than the 3-point story? Well, it's smaller. Okay, then it's probably a 2 or a 1. And at the end, it really doesn't matter if it's a 2 or a 1, depending on the velocity. If you're averaging 20 points a sprint or 50 points a sprint, or just depending on how you guys roll with the number of points. If it's bigger than that 3, then you say, okay, is it bigger than that 8? No. Okay, well then it's probably a 5, or maybe it is an 8. If it's bigger than an 8, then for us, the max size was always a 13. We always found, for some unknown reason, that if stories were a 13-point story or bigger, we struggled to estimate it right and to deliver it well. So if something was a 13 or more, we forced ourselves to break it down into smaller bits and pieces and to get 2 5-point stories or a 5-point and an 8-point story. We found that we were able to more effectively refine those stories of that smaller size than those larger ones. So that's an approach that we've done. And to me, I don't think there's any magic trick to it besides just doing it, right? So you've got to get the team working and going and sizing a bunch of stories. And then what you can do as a coach is start to grab all of the 3s that have been out there for the past 5-6 sprints, lump them together, sit down with the team and spend some time. Are these all really about the same size? If so, then grab one that's that ideal story, that's that ideal 3, and put that up on your wall and write that as the reference 3-point story. And then do the same thing with your 8s. So grab all of your 8s, sit down with a team for 15 minutes and say, let's run through all these 8s. Do we still think they're 8s? Did we do a good job? Or some of these 5s, some are 13, some are 21s, right? What's the right answer? So then what you do is you start to have this reference point of what a 3 looks like and what an 8 looks like. What you should not do is have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 5, a 8, a 13, and a 21-point reference story. Don't do that. Just get some of the midpoints between the smallest and the largest and sprinkle them in there, and then just start asking questions around, is this bigger or smaller than a 3? That'll get you the quick answers. And then bigger or smaller than an 8? That'll get you the quick answers. And that'll get teams less connected to time and start thinking about what those stories look like. Yeah, so I would, again, depending on what your spread of story points is, if it's like I said, for us it was 1 to 13, and 13 was our max. So I picked kind of 2 brackets there in the middle so I could use those as reference. And we just started pointing, right? But then after 3 months or so, our agile coaches went through and grabbed all the threes and grabbed all the eights, and they put them on a wall. They just lined them up. So do we think these all look about the same? If so, then again, you just ask the team, okay, pick the best 3-point story that you think represents the threest of the threes, and then the same thing with the eights. So that's what we've done. It's worked well for us, and it's gotten us away from those hours or minutes or whatever time unit the folks are trying to use to figure out what's going on there. So that's a trick that we've used. It's worked well. I would be interested to see if others in the chat have any challenges around sizing or any ideas around sizing that you've used to get around that. Because it's one of those tricky things, because so often the history of how people have sized things has been in hours. And I am not a fan of then taking a story and tasking it out and assigning hours to each of those tasks. Bob Galen, my dear friend that I do my podcast with, is a huge fan of that. He sees tremendous value in, as a part of sprint planning, decomposing the stories and breaking them out into tasks. I don't find a lot of value in that. I don't find a lot of use for getting down to that level. I feel if you've refined the story well and you've practiced your refinement and you've done it for months, potentially years, you're going to be pretty good at it. And the tasks, while beneficial to organize the work to execute that, I really don't see a lot of value in assigning hours to those. So I've never done that. Well, I did it when I was told I had to, but then once I could say we didn't have to do it, I said we didn't have to do it. So that's a trick. All right. So we are halfway through today's stream. First and foremost, thank you to everyone for being here. This is some of the best parts of my week. I am also starting to publish these videos out to YouTube. We do have a YouTube channel. So if you scroll down, you'll see a link to the YouTube channel. I'm putting them out there because Twitch will not retain all of our videos for forever. So I'm migrating them over as we create them together. So if you ever want to go back, if you can't find them in the videos link up above our live stream, you can at least go over to YouTube, and I'll just keep moving them over there and over there so you have the reference. So if you ever think, gosh, what did we talk about? I remember we talked about sizing, and I don't remember that thing Josh was saying, so I can go back and watch it. So if it's not here, we'll get them moved over to YouTube, and hopefully that helps. Secondly, if you have not already, please hit the follow button or the heart button up above. I know many of you have, so thank you for that. We are getting close to 40 to 50 followers. That's going to be exciting. I look forward to some of the extra things we can do. All right. All right, here we go. Okay, Rachna, good question. So I am a fan of experienced Scrum Masters or Agile coaches working with multiple teams. I don't think that's appropriate for every Scrum Master that's out there. As you're growing, as you're learning, having one team is going to be hard enough. Then two things happen. One, you get better, and two, the team gets better. So you become more effective at coaching and supporting the team. And the team begins to learn from the examples that you've set, and they start to take on some of the mindset that you've been preaching and showing the team. So they start to adopt some of your approaches. They start to lead the ceremonies for you. So at that point, you can start to step back. The key is you step back, don't step away. You can step back, and they start becoming that self-directed team. So part of that self-directed team isn't just around task assignment, prioritization, things like that, but it's also they become self-directed, self-policing around how they operate and how effective they are. So at that point, once you've done your job, and that usually comes along with you growing in your role, once you've done that, then you can start to spread out a little bit, and maybe you can take on 2 teams or 3 teams. But again, it's going to depend on the team and how mature they are at agile practices, how much support that they need to get there and to grow. So historically, ideally, a 1-to-1 ratio for a Scrum Master is the classic answer. But I've found that as teams grow, as Scrum Masters grow, those teams start to lead themselves, and Scrum Masters can start to help other teams. So that's something that I've done in place where I've led agile organizations. We started out with a 1-to-1 ratio, then everybody got better, and we were effective spreading that out. It is difficult to handle, and that initial transition is the most challenging part, because you've developed this comfort zone with the backlog, with the product owner, with the team, with the product itself. You have a good handle on that, and now you introduce a whole new set of challenges. You've got a new product owner. Who knows what that backlog looks like? Maybe there's a ton of work you have to do to get that backlog in order. If it's a new product, which it sounds like what you're saying, the situation you're in, it's a new product. So now you have to learn a little bit of that product, so that way you can have that confidence. So Rachana, are you asking to start handling more than one team, or are you being told you need to work with more than one team? I think that's an interesting question. I assumed based on your question that you were being told you needed to work on more teams, because unfortunately that's how it goes. People haven't had a chance to get their own team running, and now they're being asked/told to now handle 2 or 3 teams. They haven't fixed the one yet. So it's an interesting question. If you're ready, if you feel like you're ready, then I say yes, go do it. Go do it. Okay. So it gets down to that work in progress limit that we ask the teams to enforce on themselves. Oftentimes, leaders have to enforce a work in progress limit on themselves as well. So that's something that you need to figure out, what the appropriate work in progress limit is for you. Is it 1 team? Is it 2 teams? Is it 3 teams? I've seen some really senior agile coaches with some good teams lead 3 different teams. So operate as a scrum master for those 3 teams. I've seen it done. I wouldn't say it's common, because those were very effective scrum masters, and those were very effective teams. So that combination would allow us to spread some of the knowledge out. But again, it was never step away. You never step away from the team. You just step back and let the team run and manage and handle more of it. But you still have to have that guiding hand and operate as the guardrails. So as they start to go off course, you course correct them. They go too far to the right, you're that guardrail that just kind of nudges them back into that lane of safety. Oh, hey, fantastic, Justin. Thank you for the nice statements about the podcast. Bob and I had a busy summer, so we slacked off a bit on recording episodes, but we're back in the groove. We recorded 2 this week, A new one came out, let's see, last Thursday, I think. Another one comes out on Tuesday. We just recorded another one yesterday, so we're getting a bit of backlog. I'm going to get those queued up so that way we have consistent content all of the time. So thank you. So I am a huge fan of innovation sprints or slack time. What we did at my last job where I had a sizable team was we had a hackathon once a quarter. For us, that was just a 2-day thing. We didn't have full sprints. I would love a full sprint, but we had a ton of work to do. And actually, the 2-day hackathons worked really well for us. So it gave us what we needed, and we ended up getting a lot of return on that. Both a lot of tooling work is what we ended up getting built. We even had some physical boards that were created for our PSI boards. So we had engineers that went to Home Depot and constructed this massive board that allowed us to see plans of sprints for 6 teams for 6 sprints all at once. And that came out of a hackathon. We had all kinds of crazy ideas. We had new product ideas, new tools that enabled us to run faster behind the scenes. So those were fantastic. As I was leaving, we started to engage more of the company in the idea generation for what to build, and also to be engaged in the actual process of building those things, and customer research and everything went along with that. So I've had a lot of success with hackathons. I stole the planning, the concept, the timing from Atlassian. So they used to call them FedEx days because they would ship it overnight. But then Atlassian grew and FedEx got a little bit squirmish about them using their copyrighted name, all that stuff. So I think they just call it like ship it days, something like that. So they have a lot of good documentation out on their public Confluence pages about how they manage that across all of their sites and what the timeline looks like. So they even go into the timeline for planning, because you do it once a quarter. You have to get people to start thinking about it. And you have meetings to introduce the concept and meetings to introduce the idea of things that people want to build. And then you have the actual event. So they've done a really good job, a really helpful job of publishing a way to execute that. So I encourage you to do that. And what you'll find is that people will be resistant at first. But I remember the first one that we did, and our executives were there to see the demos of all the things that people built, and they were astounded. They wanted more of it because they saw that we were creating the future, these new different ideas, and they were really excited about that, about the things that we could do that they didn't even know that we could do. Right? They actually were things we didn't even know we could do. We just had to spend 24 hours trying to figure it out. So I'm a big fan of those. Definitely do it if you can. I know Bob, I'm trying to remember the number. Bob had some ridiculous stat about the hackathons when he was at iContact, and the percentage of projects from their hackathons that actually ended up in their product that they shipped to their customers. It was well over 50%. I think it was around like 60% of the projects that were done in their hackathon days ended up as products or as features in the product. That was just an astounding number to me. We didn't ever get that close. But that was one of those things that if you could do that, I think everybody would be on board. So definitely, if you're having trouble, Justin, selling the team or leadership on that, let me know and we can help figure out ways to get them to understand the value that you're trying to bring to the company. So that's always one of those things. You got to get people over that hump, because they think, oh no, we're not building product. What are we doing? Yep. So big fan. Works well. I encourage you to do it. That's part of that self-directed, is that what happens is leadership maybe doesn't understand how invested and how excited your team is about solving the problem that they're solving every day for their customers. A lot of those smart people have a lot of interesting ideas about different ways to solve those problems. So the thing that happened was our executives really got an understanding of how smart our team was, but also how well connected they were to the problem that our customers were facing. And lastly, that they understood there were alternative solutions and were willing to try them and get them built and get them in place. So that was one of those things where that just helped the rest of the organization understand how good our team was. And they saw, wait a minute, these guys figured out how to put a payment gateway in front of our app that's never been done before, and we didn't think it'd be done. And holy cow, you did it in 24 hours. That was a long night for me. That was one of my projects. But that was one of those things where we had a legacy product and it couldn't be done. I'm like, well, yeah, it can be done. We just need some time to try it. So definitely work that in there if you can. I have not had a full sprint to do that, but I do know there are some folks that do that. So I don't know if anybody else has different experiences with that. If you do, bring it into the chat. Be happy to hear. Happy to help. Okay, questions? Anybody else have anything? Actually, I have a question for Jamie, if you're still there. I don't know if you are. I know you're in England. Does England celebrate Halloween? Because Halloween here in the U.S. coming up on October 31st, everybody puts on a silly costume. I'm trying to figure out what in the world I'm going to be. But I didn't know what all other countries celebrated Halloween. Has anybody ever had an Agile-centric costume? I don't know what in the world you would be. It would be interesting to hear about that. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. We did look at a clown last sprint. There was a what was that? That was a website that I think Lori or Sue recommended with some Agile games. And it was a cool website with a lot of cool content, but there was a scary clown, and I think I discovered that I had a fear of clowns. Because that clown was creepy. Yeah, so definitely, Justin, look up Atlassian's. I'll see if I can find it real quick. They also have done some really cool things. I've been to one of Atlassian's conferences, and they had all of their winners of the hackathon. They got to present at their conference. So they got to stand up in front of, there were thousands of people there. And there were even more online watching it. Oh, there you go. Nice. Yeah, so there's some really good stuff on there. It's been a while, but they did have published out there their. Oh, look at that. Josh is on fire again with these costumes. Oh man, maybe actually the closest thing I had was I found online somewhere had a t-shirt that had a 404. Oh geez, I learned how to talk. A 404 error. So I took I'm pretty sure it was a Sharpie, and I just wrote on a white t-shirt, 404 costume not found. So that was the closest technical costume that I've ever had. Not many people got it, unfortunately. I thought it was really funny, but oh man, all these costume ideas. Yeah, cool. All right, well, I'll figure that out later because I got to figure out what I'm going to be. We have a neighborhood Halloween party, and I never have the best costume, so hopefully I can do better this year. Although my wife is very good at costumes, she always comes up with something good and ends up dragging me along, and I don't do as good a job as her. So, but we'll figure that out. All right, well, last chance for questions, anyone? Otherwise, I'm gonna shut it down for the day. So let me know. Thank you so much. Again, tell your friends, tell anybody. Let's get those followers up. Let's get more and more people here. The same as our podcast. My whole goal here is to just help people. So you can help people by helping them be here, and then you can help them. I can help them. This community that we're building can get stronger and stronger, and we can become a fantastic resource for people whenever they have problems. At that point, maybe we'll go more than 1 hour a day. Maybe we'll go a couple hours a day. Maybe you guys will host. Who knows what's going on? I would love to see this thing explode, and that can't happen without you and your help. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for helping spread the word, and I will see you Tuesday at 10 a.m. All right. Take care, everyone.